So, taking a look at what we're going to be doing is, so far we've been working with users and groups and delegation and all the Active Directory stuff. So we have an organization called GOPA, we have organizational units, we have users, we have groups, we have now delegated control. I'll put delegated control. So we've done everything on the user and group and sort of all that whole aspect of working with Active Directory objects. We have all these computers and we have all these people that still don't have access to any files. And so we're going to look at the files side of things right now. The files are separate and independent of Active Directory. So this is another, I don't know, kind of an idiosyncrasy is that we have a whole Active Directory structure and we have to completely do a mirrored almost environment of our file system. So remember when we had, in fact, let me even back up a little bit further. If I have an organization unit called sales, and then I made inside of there, sales users, we're eventually going to need a folder called sales for sales people to put their stuff. Over here, I might have accounting. I'll make it HR, it's shorter to spell. I have a group called HR users. And so I'm going to have all these people listed in HR. They're going to be members of the HR group, and then they're going to eventually have access to the HR files. So try to keep everything straight of who's where and what are files and what are folders and what are containers and organizational units. I still see it all the time that we end up creating a file system. So here's I'm going to make it my D drive. I'm going to make a file system, and we're putting people under here. I don't know, Tammy and Sam. People don't go under there. Those aren't people things, unless you have your organization set that way, but that's not very typical at all. People go in the organizational units. Files go underneath the folder system. Even more confusing, take a look at this. Here's my file system. So these nice little icons that we use for folders. Looking at Active Directory, let me log back in. I use something that looks very similar. These are containers, and these are folders. So try to keep them separate. So the next thing I want to talk about, let me bring back my board, is a little bit, and this is kind of back to PC support basics. Here's my hard drive, and I have one disk with one volume. So this is taking up one full disk, it's a volume. And right now it's called C, and on there I have my operating system. Where can I put my data files? Everyone's looking like... I can put them here. I can put files on here. You do it every day. The classroom computer is set up that way. I'm guessing your home computer is set up that way as well, at least for probably 80% of you. Being IT people, some of you probably have separate drives or separate partitions or whatever. Just curious, quick show of hands. How many of you just have a C drive at home? Raise your hand. Wow. Okay. I thought, who has two or more partitions? Okay. And that leaves like 4 of you that don't have computers, I guess. But okay. That's great. Why do you do it that way? Jacob, why do you do it that way?
Well, I have a C on my client.
Well, absolutely.
It's stored on the server.
No, I'm talking about your client on a desktop computer. You have one? How many of you have 2 or more? Okay. Why?
I have an SSD for my operating system and like a hard drive for my data.
For your data. That's very common. Having a separate disk over here. So maybe, since SSDs are still kind of small, I'm going to put it where it makes the most power, but for the operating system, it's running, and that's where the applications are going to run, and put the data over here. What's another advantage of doing that? What do you mean protection?
In case one fails, they're completely separated.
Absolutely. If one fails, they're completely separate. More so, we think of our operating system side. If this goes down, Yeah, I can still, I still have to reinstall my operating system and do all that configuration stuff, but I don't have to back up and restore all my data. It's on a completely, especially if it's a separate disk. If this was one disk with 2 volumes, well, you have other issues, but if you want to, even with one disk and multiple partitions, if I have my operating system over here, my data over here, you know, how many times do we like wipe out our operating system or upgrade our operating system or whatever? We can do it all right there, keeping it always separate. It's also really nice for security also. Yeah, there is security in place and there really isn't there is really a boundary. Let me get rid of this X. There is a boundary between here and there. You know, you don't have access to all the files. But if you think about it, I don't want anybody, you know, if I have a protected area of my building, I don't even want the thief in my building. You know, get them out there completely, so put them someplace else. So put all the people on a separate disk. It's very, very common in server environments. And then what originally the learning plan was set to do is to do it mirrored. You know, hey, data is kind of important, so let's make 2 disks and mirror them. Do it if you want to, it's a fun activity, but we're kind of behind a little bit, so let's just try to make it as simple as possible. So that's our server, and we currently have a C drive. We need to add another disk to it. So I'm going to walk you through the process of how to do that on your servers. So we're going to be doing this on our data server, So I need to actually launch it. Mine's not up yet, so give me a second. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going ahead and log in. This is data 1. And I will be putting another drive in here to make it my data drive. Using SCSI or SATA, they're hot swappable, and in real life, this would probably be the case on a server, is that you need another drive. You usually will have some kind of access to the outside. You just throw it in there, and you kind of start from there. We don't have a physical disk to throw in here, so we have to create a virtual disk to work on this. So to do that, we want to get to the menus up on top. Now yours might be collapsed like mine is, or you might be like long over here as well. But underneath, saving, oh, probably my Windows 10 just went to sleep. It's under VM, and yeah, my Windows 10 is trying to go to sleep. Okay, go back up to Workstation, VM, and then I want to go to Settings for this virtual machine. And on the settings, I can see what I have currently, like memory and processor and hard disk. But on the bottom, you can also add. You can add another disk. Now, it's going to prompt you for administrative access. I'm not sure why me managing my virtual machine requires administrative access, but it does. So when you get prompted for that, you're going to have to use the local administrator credentials, which is /student with a password of student. I didn't have to do it because I'm an administrator, but the rest of you probably will. So /student, and student is the password. And that should allow you then to get into, let me just move on the side so you keep watching it, to this screen. Once you're on this screen, you can go ahead and click on a hard disk. I'm going to add a new hard disk. And we'll keep it SCSI. It recommends it. SCSI or SATA work equally fine. I'm creating a new disk. And I'm going to make it 500 gigabytes. But you know what? It doesn't make any difference. It's like, I don't have that big of a disk. It doesn't matter. It's thin provisioned. It's only going to use up enough space that it's going to need for that disk. So right now there's not much on there. I am going to put it as a single file though. If you choose allocate all the disk space now, then in fact it would try to make a 500 gig file, which most of us don't have that size of portable drive. So we make sure we take a single file and put it as 500 gigs, make it at least sound reasonable on a server, but default 60 gigs, plenty of space for what we're working on, but make it at least look better. Then go ahead and click next and let it name it what it's going to name it, and then click finish. And then I click OK. So what I've done is physically thrown, or virtually thrown, a new disk in my computer. So how do you manage that then once you throw a new disk in your computer? What do you use? Disk management, absolutely. We'll let it create this disk. Good. Okay. So I'm going to right click on the start menu. And I'm going to go to disk management. And I'm just going to make this full screen so you can see a little bit better. So right now I have a C drive, well actually C drive over here on disk 0. And then I have a CD-ROM with drive D. Now you can do this in any order.
All we see is the virtual machine settings. I mean, that's all.
Taking a look at this is that I already have a D drive. I know ultimately I want to make this D. So you can do this later on. You can kind of switch this around of drive letters. I'm going to do it ahead of time just so I have the D drive available. So I'm going to right click on my CD-ROM drive. I'm going to change the drive letter. And click change. And I want to free up the D drive. So I'm going to make my CD-ROM E. And it's going to say like, oh man, some things might not run. It's a CD-ROM drive. Don't do this to your other drives though. If like your C drive, don't just like, oh, I think I'll make it F. Your registry is pointing to everything on C. So not a good idea to be changing files and folders that have stuff on it. CD-ROMs, not a problem. Blank drives, not a problem. Once you start using it, if things are mapped to it later on, it's going to be a problem. So now I have a little red arrow down. It's offline. The disk is offline. I have to right click on it and put it online first. This is different between workstations and servers. If you take a disk and throw it into a workstation, it puts it online automatically. You still have to initialize and do that kind of stuff. On a server, it puts it in offline. An administrator has to come in and put it online to even make the disk even available at all. So that's one extra step you have to do in a server environment. Okay, on disk 1, it's still, has a little down arrow, but it is online. It just needs to be initialized. So I'm going to click initialize the disk. And it's disk 1. And we'll leave the defaults. There's some technical things dealing with different partition types, but we need to move on. So now I have a disk. It's just all unallocated. It's a basic disk. It's online, ready to be used. And from here is where I make my volumes. I can right click on it. I'm going to make a new simple volume. Kind of click through here. And I can make the size. Now with the size, I can make multiple partitions on here. Say I make this, I don't know, 20,000. And make that my D drive. You can see it just takes a part of my disk. So I can make a D drive, an E drive, F drive, or whatever. So it's a regular disk management from here. I don't want to do that. So I'm going to extend my volume and actually extend it all the way and make it the entire volume. But you could have made it that way to begin with. I'm going to rename it. I don't like the name new volume. So I'm going to, let's see, I guess I have to do it from here. I want to name it data. And make it the entire size. Now this is all in disk management, and we're done in here. Let me just go through the whole process again. I'm just going to delete this. So once I get to this point, I could do new simple volume. Click next, choose the entire size. It's going to choose the next available letter, which is D. I want to make it labeled data, and then click next. And it's healthy and it's online and ready to go. I can close disk management and I can go to my file manager now. And under this PC, I now have 2 disks. Well, 3 if you count your CD-ROM. This one is 48 gigabytes of 60 gigs is free. This one's 499 gigabytes free of 499. So we just create a storage space, nice and simple. Now from here, if we're thinking of giving, let's kind of work with our animal world. We want to be able to give, them places to put stuff. It's just a matter of making a folder. So I'm going to make one called animals. And then, you create folders before, but under animals, I'm going to create one for the canines. And I'll create another one for the felines. And that's all I'm really worried about at this point. And we'll kind of come back and play with this. So I'll give you a chance to build this out first, and then take notes, and then kind of check your notes, and then see what you have configured as far as creating the files. I'm gonna have you. It's about 10:02, so I'm going to have you take the rest of the time before 11, and actually do the rest of the departments. So create a folder on D for each GOPA department: executive, sales, operations, accounting, and IS. That takes care of, departments like, the operations people having a place to store operations files and so on and so forth. But we also want to create a shared folder. What if we want to put something that's going to be out there for everybody, not just for one department, for many departments? So go ahead and create that. I guess, as long as you're creating folders, why not? We'll do the payables and receivables as well. Operations, we have our first, second, and third shift people. Oh no, that's sales, sorry. Payables and receivables follow under here. Sales is east and west. IS, HR. So no special folders in our IS or HR. So kind of split over the page break. Let me just put a page break in here. Kind of put everything in one. So go ahead and create those folders. Take about 10 minutes to do that. Then at 11 we'll take a break. And then we're just going to do a quick introduction to file system rights. But not a whole lot more into that. So that's what we're going to do. So now what we're going to do is just talk about rights a little bit. And we're going to talk about specifically NTFS rights. So this is not any different between the PC on the client, a standalone computer, and a server. So NTFS rights are the same. So we're just going to make it very, very simple for right today. Just doing base level rights. And then next week we'll get more complicated and work with shares and those kinds of things. But work with base rights. So when we work with rights, here's a term again, access control list. When we're giving people access to something, so whether it's a user or an object or a group or a file or a folder, we have access control lists. And that tells us access control, who can do what. And the who in this situation, this is on the file system, so these are file system access control lists, specifically NT file system rights, because every operating system has different rights, of what they can do. The who is going to be a user or a group again. We can't put organizational units in here, we can only put users or groups in here. And if at all possible, what do we choose? Groups. Just like before, when we talk about giving them delegate responsibility to a container, we want that admin to be a group, not a user, so we can put people in and out. Same thing here, so when we give specific rights to them, we are going to be able to take them out and put them in very easily without having to go through this part of it. You kind of set this and then go. So the user, the group, and then the what. Now, I'm going to simplify this to the kind of the basic level. The first thing is no rights. Now, one way of having no rights is just not to give any rights. But there's also ways of going in and saying you don't have any rights. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later on. So you just don't have any rights. Or you can have read-only rights, which means that you can see it, you can open that file, but you can't change anything into it. Where would that ever happen? What would be the purpose of that?
Maybe directions,
Directions?
or you want them to read it, but you don't want anyone to sit there.
Absolutely. Can you imagine being on the factory floor and these are the directions of how to do this, and that everyone that logs in can tweak it a little bit? Yeah. Maybe it might be advantageous, but I'm thinking not. Okay, excellent. Maybe corporate policies. We use an example, the dress code. Do you want everybody to just be able to change the dress code? Or attendance policy? Attendance is optional. So no, we want to be able to control some of those things. And then we have read-write rights, which means we're able to read the file and make changes to it. We actually have one more right as well, which is full control. Now, full control could obviously do all those things. It's like, well, what difference would there be between reading and writing and then having full control? Full control just goes a little bit further. It's not just being able to read the file and write to the file and delete the file and rename it. That's what read, write is what we're talking about, all those things. It's being able to actually work with the attributes of the file and even working with the permissions of the file and the attributes of it and the more technical back end side of things. And we don't want anybody to really do that. You're going to see, debates on this, like a lot of these different things, say, oh yeah, just give them full control or whatever. Not a good idea. Only the administrator should really, my opinion, only the administrator should have full control. So we're going to be concentrating on read only and read write. Now, we don't specifically have those rights in NTFS. They're going to look a little different. So if I go into NTFS, in fact, I'm just going to go on my physical computer here. And I'm going to choose a file, ISO file. And I go to properties. And I guess, I turned off writes on there. Let me go back to my server. That makes a lot more sense. I'm not using NTFS. So, okay, let's go back to my data server. Here's one. I have animals on here. So if I right click on animals and I go to properties, I now have a security tab, and this tells me the who can do what. So that's my access control. Who can do what? And so right now the creator owner is just like, well, it doesn't show much anything. This is another little pet peeve. It's you have to scroll through to see everything. It's only one line. Not sure why this box is going to be one line longer, so I wouldn't have to scroll. But it's there, so you have to scroll to see what it is. And here in this case, it's a special permission, and we're not going to talk about those right now, but whatever. For the system, you're going to see that you have these rights here as well, and you have an administrator, and these are kind of grayed out, and you also have users. And users are able to read. They can't write the files, but they can read. It's like, where's this coming from, and how is it all happening? Well, that's actually a major concern also that I have, is that right now, if I start putting files anywhere in here, everybody in the entire company can see everything. Is that a good idea?
No.
I'm not thinking that's a good idea. But that's the default way that it's implemented in a Windows environment. Not all environments do that. If you put a new drive out there in other environments, this is like nobody has access to it. You give it access to it. Windows says, give everybody access to it. If you don't want them to, take it away. So anyway, so we need to get rid of those things. But you can see that this is the access control list, but I'm actually getting it from someplace else. I'm inheriting it. And where you're inheriting it from the drive itself. So I'm going to click on this PC and then go to the data drive itself, not a folder, but the data drive itself. And if I right click on it, go to properties and go to security, now you can see like black check marks on here. This is where I'm actually getting these things from. Now, everyone, don't mess with everyone. It does need special permissions. They don't have read and write or anything like that, so they can't access the files. But there's some special back-end things that have to happen for the person to even eventually ever have any access to it. So don't ever play with the everyone. The creator owner, that's also special, so leave that alone. The system is the operating system. The operating system has to have control to files. Not a good idea if you go to the operating system and say, oh, no, you can't access files anymore. What is? So just leave that one alone. And the administrators, I'm the administrator. Don't mess with me. So the administrator should also have access to it. But this is our problem right here. There is an access control list. It says users can read, and then it says execute as well. So that's my read-only attribute. So it's really 3 different attributes all rolled into one that I consider as read. So anytime that you see a read-only, you're really referring to read, list the folder contents, and then read and execute. So just kind of put that in your mind. Those 3 things equal read-only.
This is for the whole drive.
This is for the whole drive.
So not just
Bad idea.
Bad idea.
So we want to get rid of that. So we hit the edit key, and then we go to users. And we just want to remove the users. We just want to get rid of users altogether at the root of the drive. So now, when I go over to animals and look at the security for there, everyone, users isn't there anymore. And that's good. Now no one except the administrator really has access to this folder. If you notice again, it's gray, which means it's an inherited. It means I didn't get it. That means I got it from someplace else. So you got it from above and it's just flowing on down. Okay, so I'm on the animals. So who should be in this list? So who should have access to the animals folder? Okay, or, okay. Oh, you know what? I don't think I made a full group, did I? On DC1, let me log in. Ah, wrong screen. Here we go. Did you make a full animals group? I should have. I didn't. Sorry. Group. Animals. And part of animals, members would be my K9 users and my not typing very well here. Let's do it this way. There we go. Feline users. So I'm going to come back and I'm going to give the animals group these rights. And by default, they're going to have read only, which means they can go look at the files in the folders, but they can't change anything. I want to click the modify. Now, if you notice very carefully, when I click modify, it's also going to give the right. Now, modify means that you can change the contents of the file. Means you can delete it, you can rename it, and those kinds of things. Writing means literally write to the file. So again, we refer to it as read-write rights, but in detail, that's very specific. It's actually write and modify. Read-only is then adding the read and execute, list folder contents, and read as well. So I click modify and write automatically gets added. Notice I'm staying away from full control. Just don't do it, in my opinion. Go ahead and click OK. And now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my Windows 10 machine back on. No, I can't do this yet. I have to do it from the data drive. Sorry. I jumped ahead. We can't use Windows 10 because we don't have any shares set up. We have to go right from our data server. So I'm going to log on. So, oh, there we go. Click. I'm going to sign out as administrator. And I'm going to log in as one of those animals. Let's try Fluffy. And I'm going to click on my start. Oh, actually, here's my file manager. I'm going to get to my file explorer. Click on this PC, and there's my data drive. And there's the animals folder. And I can see things under there. I should be able to make a new folder. Sure. I should make a new file as well. So I'm going to make a text document called cats rule dogs drool. And so it's showing that I have rights to do that. So I can make files and folders, I can delete a folder or whatever. So it's just basically NTFS permissions. I'm going to log out. I'm going to log back as administrator, just make another change here. So I'm going to log in back as administrator, because administrator can change the file permissions. Oh, wrong one. I forgot to do GOPA administrator. Since the profiles are created, it should pop up pretty quickly. Go back to my data drive. Go to animals, go to properties, security. Let's go back to those animals there. Animals. And we're going to get rid of the write and modify write. So both of those are going to go away. And so now it's equivalent to being read-only. It's supposed to be read-only equivalent. So let's try it. Oh, let's log in as, oh, I don't know, Spot. And I go to this PC, my data drive. There's the folders. I can see everything. Oh, there's a document. I can open it. Let me try adding some text to it. Go ahead and close it. Yeah, go ahead and save it. And it doesn't let me save it. Do you want to replace it? Yeah, access denied. So that's one of those things that looks like you're doing stuff until you get way to the end. And then it says, no, you can't do that. Oh, what do you mean I can't do that? Okay, let's close that. Don't save it. Well, I definitely need to get rid of that. I can't have that sitting on my network. So I hit delete, and I can't delete it. I have to have administrator access to that. So it's like, well, let me just try renaming it. I don't know. Maybe I can rename it. No, that needs administrator privilege as well. So you can't do anything with it. All you can do is see the files if you have the read-only access. You're able to create files, delete files, change the contents of them if you have the read-write. So what's your activity to do then? Probably give you like 10 or 15 minutes to work on this. And very, very basically, is in the learning plan, it talks about, you know, giving the rights to those top level folders. I know we ended up making like accounts payables and receivables and first, second, third. Don't do anything with those at all. You just want to be working with the very top level folders and giving them their rights to their departments. So I don't know how much detail I have on there. Grant file access rights. So each department user group has read-write access to their department folder. The second thing is grant file access for all domain users to be able to read and write to the shared folder. So we have that shared folder sitting out there. That should really go to everybody. To take a look at what that would kind of look like is, well, this isn't a good example because this is the wrong server. I'll just bring up the security. I can edit this, and you have a group called users or everyone. You can also add the domain itself. You can't. Let's see. All users, everyone. Everyone's out there. All users, domain users. That's what I want to talk about. I'm sorry. Domain users. Remember that group that's automatically created that every user is automatically put in? So if you want everybody in the domain to have access to a folder, you can use that group named domain users. And that's who you'd be assigning to that shared folder. So again, you're not doing anything below those sublevels. It's just accounting users should have access to the accounting folder. Sales users have access to the sales folder. Executive users have access to the executive folder. Domain users or everyone or users have access, read-write access to the shared folder. And then go in and log in as different people. Log in as somebody from sales and see if you can access the accounting and HR folders. Log in as somebody from HR and see if you can get to the shared folder. That's how you test rights. No matter how much you calculate and logically think things should work out, you test it by logging in and doing it. Do I have rights and don't I have rights to where I want to go? So is that clear? So you're just doing read-write access, which is the, the modify, read and execute, list folders, read, and write rights. So it's actually those 5 rights, but you're giving those rights to those people for those departments. And so we're stopping the learning plan at that point, and we'll finish up the rest of it later on. You'll kind of start seeing what's happening It's like, okay, so I gave everybody, all the animals, access to the animals folder. That means all the animals have access to canines and felines. What if I want to keep them separate? That's what we're going to talk about next week. So the rest of the day is yours to, do documentation and practice and backing up and snapshotting and all that kind of good stuff. So